Ahmed al-Rashid lived in a large house that stood at the top of a quiet street, filled with palm trees. His home did not look like something an ordinary person would own. It had tall white pillars, gold lights that shined at night, and a gate that opened only when security allowed it. People in the area often stopped just to take pictures from outside. Ahmed was known for his success, his money, and his polished lifestyle. He believed in living grand and expected everyone around him to follow the same standards. Ahmed spent most of his younger years working long hours until his business grew beyond what he first imagined. He invested in buildings, hotels, and shopping centers. People said that whatever he touched turned into profit. That reputation gave him pride and sometimes arrogance. He liked perfection, and when something was not perfect, he said so clearly. Inside his home was endless luxury. The floors were smooth marble, the ceilings were high, and the room smelled of expensive oil blends that came from fine stores. The living room held a grand piano near the wide window, where the sunlight rested every morning. It was not there only for beauty. Ahmed loved music, but not just any music. He enjoyed songs that sounded like old traditions mixed with modern orchestra styles. He often hosted gatherings where musicians visited and played for his friends. The piano was one of Ahmed's most prized items. He once bought it during a trip abroad when a famous music expert told him it was rare. He liked rare things. He liked things that not everyone could have. Working in Ahmed's home was not simple. His workers were treated fairly, but expected to keep everything perfect. One of those workers was a maid named Maria. She was soft-spoken, worked quietly, and did her tasks without drawing attention. She lived in a small room at the far side of the house. She had been working there for months, long enough to know how Ahmed wanted his towels folded, how his shoes needed polishing, and how precise his tea should taste. Maria came from a family that needed her support. She did not complain, did not ask for favors, and never tried to stand out. The other workers respected her because she never pushed anyone aside. She always helped when needed. Ahmed barely noticed her beyond her duties. To him, she was another worker, someone who ensured the floors were spotless, the cushions arranged correctly, and his schedule flowed smoothly. But that was enough for him. Sometimes, when Maria cleaned the living room, her eyes stayed longer on the piano, not in a way that suggested curiosity, but like someone who remembered something familiar. The shiny black wood, the soft keys, the seat placed right at the center. It held meaning she did not show. Ahmed's daily life was filled with business meetings, calls, and travel. He loved routine. He woke early, ate breakfast in silence, and checked reports sent by his office staff. His voice often sounded firm, even when he was not upset. That tone made people listen carefully. He believed authority should look and sound serious. Even though Ahmed had everything money could offer, he sometimes felt something missing. He did not express it, but the quiet of his house often reminded him. He had luxury, but not warmth. He had respect, but not closeness. One evening, he hosted a dinner with business partners. They laughed, talked about numbers, spoke of new investments. When everyone was seated, a violinist played softly near the table. Ahmed watched calmly, nodding at the music. But near the kitchen door, Maria stood, holding a tray. She was silent as always, yet while serving drinks, she heard the music and paused only for a second, long enough for the head housekeeper to tell her to continue. When the guests left that night and the rooms were empty again, Ahmed walked into the living room. The piano sat untouched. He thought for a moment and then walked upstairs. The lights dimmed behind him. Sometimes workers talked in whispers when Ahmed was gone. They said he was not unkind, only distant. They wondered what life was like before he became wealthy, what shaped his rigid way of thinking. Maria listened silently, but did not add anything. She remembered her old home, not luxurious but loud with laughter. She remembered evenings filled with soft tunes, where music played not for guests but for herself. She missed that world, but did not talk about it. Early the next morning, Ahmed walked past the piano again on his way to the dining area. He paused for a moment, looking at the instrument as if judging its place. He then continued walking, unaware that someone else admired the same piano differently. Life in that large house moved smoothly. Each day was predictable, each role clearly defined. Ahmed lived as someone used to being obeyed. Maria lived as someone who served without question. And no one imagined that a small shift, barely visible, almost accidental, would soon pull their worlds closer. Yet that shift was already forming, quietly, without either of them noticing. Maria continued her work in the house as quietly as she always did. Her mornings began before sunrise, when the hallways were empty and the lights still dim. She liked early hours because nobody rushed her and she could take her time dusting shelves, arranging cushions, and wiping tables. Even though she moved gently through the rooms, her mind was never still. Some memories came back when she cleaned near the piano, but she pushed them away and focused on her duties. The piano always stayed there, untouched most days, shining beneath the tall window. Sometimes she paused for a second when she passed it, but she never dared to sit on the bench again. It was not hers. It did not belong to her world anymore. She was only there to work. One afternoon, when Ahmed was away at a meeting, the other workers gathered in the kitchen for their break. They sat around the table with tea and biscuits, laughing softly about something simple. Maria joined them because she had finished folding laundry. She heard someone say, "Do you know our boss once bought a whole piece of furniture just because an art collector told him?" It was rare. Everyone giggled a little. It was not disrespectful, just a small moment of lightness. Maria listened. She didn't speak. Someone asked her if she liked working there, and she simply nodded. It was better than many other places she could have ended up. She had food, a clean room, and steady income. That was enough. Later that day, while cleaning the main living room, she found sheet music left nearby. She recognized the symbols, though she had not looked at written music for a very long time. Her fingers twitched slightly, just as a habit. Muscle memory never truly forgot. She placed the papers neatly back on the table and continued wiping down the piano surface. At that exact moment, she heard footsteps behind her. It was Ahmed. She quickly stepped away from the piano, holding her cleaning cloth. He observed her for a moment without speaking. His gaze was not angry, just sharp. "Make sure you don't leave fingerprints on the surface," he said. "Yes, sir," she replied softly. He walked away without further comment. Maria inhaled slowly. Her heartbeat slowed down. Then she returned to dusting the edges of the carpet. Ahmed walked upstairs to his study. His meetings had left him tense. He reviewed papers, signed agreements, and gave directions to his staff. Everything seemed normal, yet his mind went back to that moment earlier. He wondered why the maid stood so close to the piano. Maybe she was only cleaning, he assumed, so he dismissed the thought. Days passed without incident. Life continued just as it always had, quiet, predictable, separated. One night, Ahmed invited two guests over for dinner. They were old business partners visiting from out of town. The housekeeper prepared a fine meal, and Maria helped set the dining table. Long candles stood at the center, plates lined up evenly, and glasses sparkled beneath warm lighting. When the guests arrived, Ahmed greeted them near the entrance. His tone shifted into something lighter, smoother than the one the workers usually heard. He laughed, shook hands, and led them inside. Maria served the table while Ahmed shared stories of business trips and deals. She did not try to listen, but words drifted toward her. Numbers, names of hotels, new investments. Everything sounded so distant from her life. During dinner, one of the guests noticed the piano. "You still keep that beautiful instrument?" he asked. Ahmed nodded proudly. "Of course. Many artists have played it in this house. I enjoy live music whenever I host events. It gives evenings meaning." Maria looked at the piano from afar while refilling a cup of water. She remembered how her father once said music always changes the atmosphere of a room. After dinner, the guests sat in the living room and spoke about upcoming business gatherings. Maria collected plates, then walked toward the kitchen. As she passed, she heard one of the guests mention something. "You should arrange a small live performance soon. People miss the elegance you used to host." Ahmed's voice lowered thoughtfully. "I have been considering it. Maybe next week." Maria did not think much of it at that moment. She placed dishes in the sink and washed them slowly. Then she went to rest in her room. Her room had a small window. Through it she could see a tiny piece of the night sky. Sometimes a moonbeam fell inside faintly. She reached into her bag and pulled out something wrapped carefully, small pieces of old sheet music, faded, folded many times. She opened them gently. The edges had worn out, but she still recognized every mark. Her eyes softened. She placed the papers back, turned off the light, and lay down. The next day, the schedule changed. The housekeeper announced something during the morning briefing. "We will host guests for a cultural gathering. The boss wants everything spotless. There will be music, food, and a display." Everyone nodded. Assignments were handed out. Maria was tasked with preparing the guest hall, cleaning special glass pieces, and arranging seating. When she walked past the piano later, she noticed a new cover placed over its soft fabric designed to protect it before events. She tightened it slightly around the corners so dust would not collect. Meanwhile, Ahmed spent hours planning the upcoming gathering. His office staff mentioned that many people were excited to attend. Influential business partners, their families, and a few well-known personalities would arrive. Everything had to run smoothly. Ahmed wanted perfection. The week went by quickly. Furniture was polished, garden lights tested, carpets brushed clean. The house buzzed with movement, but no chaos, only steady preparation. One evening, after everyone finished working and lights were slowly turning off, Maria returned to her room. Her hands were tired from scrubbing floors and carrying boxes, but her steps were calm. She changed clothes, sat on her bed, and closed her eyes. She thought about nothing at first, just silence. Then her thoughts drifted. It was not the piano she missed. It was the feeling, the softness of keys beneath her fingertips. The weightless moment when a note left her hand and filled the air. Music had never been for performance in her old life. It was part of her, like breathing, like eating, like laughing. She wondered how strange it was that she could stand near something so familiar every day and still pretend she had no connection to it. The night passed slowly, filled with quiet longing. The next morning came with new instructions. The housekeeper told Maria she would help decorate the hall entrance. It included arranging flowers beside the central doorway and preparing welcome cards. Maria worked carefully. She shaped floral stems evenly, tied ribbons, and placed small lights around the display. When she finished, the housekeeper smiled faintly and said it looked beautiful. "Thank you," Maria replied. She did not seek praise, but receiving even a little brought warmth. Later that afternoon, Ahmed walked through the hallway reviewing everything. When he reached the entrance display, he paused. "Who arranged this?" he asked. The housekeeper pointed toward Maria. He looked at the flowers again, then nodded once. "Good work," he said. Maria simply lowered her head. She did not reply with unnecessary words. Ahmed continued his inspection. He checked seating, lighting, and the arrangement of paintings. The piano remained untouched. He wanted it kept clean for the event. On the night before the gathering, the house was quiet again. Workers returned to their rooms, lights dimmed, curtains lowered. Maria passed through the living room once more to make sure nothing was dusty. She saw the piano again. Covered. Waiting. Her eyes softened for a moment. She reached out but did not touch it. She only stood near it. Something stirred inside her, something she had forced to sleep for a long time, but she walked away again. Ahmed entered the room just after she left, unaware of how long she had been standing there. He simply walked toward the piano, lifted the cover halfway, and ran his hand gently across its smooth surface. He whispered to himself, "Tomorrow will be perfect." The house rested for the night, unaware that all the small moments building up silently would soon collide. No one knew that something unexpected was approaching, not loud, not planned, but powerful enough to change how people saw one another, and that change was already near. The day of the gathering arrived with a quiet excitement spreading through the house. Workers moved carefully from room to room, making sure everything looked perfect. Tables were polished again even though they were already shining, and carpets were brushed twice just in case a small piece of dust remained. Maria helped set small plates, arranged napkins, and checked lighting along the hallway. Ahmed walked around wearing a well-tailored suit. His expression looked calm, but his mind was focused. He expected the event to run smoothly. Important people were arriving, people whose opinions mattered in his business circles. He wanted the evening to be remembered. The piano sat uncovered now, waiting near the center of the room like something delicate but powerful. Its black surface reflected light from the tall chandeliers, and the bench rested evenly beneath it. It was ready before any guest even stepped inside. By evening, cars began lining up near the driveway. Security opened the gate and guests stepped out dressed in elegant clothes. Soft music played through the speakers while waiters carried trays of drinks. The place felt lively, filled with greetings, laughter, and slow conversations about business, families, and travel. Maria moved quietly with a tray, serving drinks where needed. She kept her eyes lowered, but she noticed how people admired the palace-like walls, the sculptures, the grand staircase. Some guests pointed toward the piano, saying they missed hearing live performances in this house. One of the guests approached Ahmed. "I hope we will hear someone play tonight. This piano always brought life here." "He," said. Ahmed smiled lightly. "The musician is on his way," he replied confidently. Those words were true because earlier that week Ahmed had hired a pianist recommended by a well-known performer. The musician had confirmed his arrival, and everything should have gone exactly as planned. But plans do not always follow instructions. As time passed, guests began sitting, chatting, and tasting food. Some children of the guests gently touched the piano keys, making very small sounds before their parents pulled them away. Then the head housekeeper approached Ahmed with a worried expression. "Sir, the pianist just called," she whispered. "He had car trouble on the highway. He may arrive late." Ahmed frowned for the first time that evening. Late? That was not acceptable. He stepped aside and made another call. The call went unanswered. He tried again. Nothing. People were already expecting music, especially now that the evening was moving toward the main presentation. Guests whispered, "Is someone performing? When will the music start?" Ahmed felt pressure building in the room. His reputation would look unorganized if the event failed in something so simple. The head housekeeper came back again, not with bad news this time, but with something unexpected. "Sir," she said carefully, "I think someone here knows how to play." Ahmed looked at her with disbelief. "Who?" Before she spoke, she hesitated, almost afraid of sounding foolish. "Maria," she finally replied. "I have heard her. Not recently, but I once heard her humming tunes that matched piano pieces. I think she understands music." Ahmed almost laughed, not loudly, but with disbelief. "She cleans floors and dusts tables. That doesn't make her a musician." The housekeeper lowered her head. "I understand, sir, but it may help while we wait. Just for a few minutes. People are asking already." Ahmed looked across the room, saw Maria serving drinks. Unaware of any of this, he shook his head slightly. But time was passing and he had no other solution. He walked toward Maria. She placed the tray down once she noticed him approaching. "Yes, sir," she said quietly. He spoke slowly. "I heard that you know how to play piano. Is that true?" Maria froze. Her face did not change much, but her eyes showed something that moved quickly: fear, surprise, memory. She did not answer at first. "Do you?" Ahmed repeated. Maria took a small breath. "A little, sir," she replied. "Guests are waiting for music. The hired musician is delayed. I want you to sit and play something simple until he arrives. Nothing complicated, just background sound." Maria looked at the piano. Her legs felt weak for a moment, not from fear, but from the weight of memories returning all at once. "I will try," she whispered. Ahmed did not look convinced. "Do not embarrass me," he said flatly, thinking his warning would help. Maria gave a small nod and walked toward the piano. The bench felt different now, not like a piece of furniture, but like something from a part of her life she once hid away. The guests turned their heads, curiously. Some wondered why a maid was sitting there. Some assumed she would fail. Maria let her fingers hover above the keys. She closed her eyes just for a moment, not to imagine anything, but to remove fear from her heartbeat. Then she touched the first note. A soft sound flowed into the room. Then another. Then a familiar sequence. Her hands moved slowly first, then grew steady, and then confident. People paused mid-conversation. The sound was gentle but full. Every key pressed carried warmth, calmness, and something no one expected from someone who spent her days cleaning. Maria did not look around. Her eyes stayed low as she played pieces she remembered from years ago. Her fingers moved without hesitation, shifting from one melody to another as if she were speaking in music. Guests gradually gathered around. Not too close, just enough to see her. Someone whispered, "She's talented." Another said, "That is not beginners playing." Ahmed stood a few steps away. His posture stiffened, not from anger but from surprise. He listened not just with attention, but with disbelief. He tried to understand how someone who never spoke of music could play like that. Maria continued, flowing into a different piece, something slow, almost emotional. In her mind she could see the place where she used to practice. She could see herself younger, hopeful, planning a future filled with concerts and small crowds cheering her. That world disappeared long ago, but the music never left. When she finished her first piece, everyone clapped, not loudly at first, but with growing sound. Maria stepped back from the piano slightly, unsure whether she should continue. But before she could stand, a guest said, "Please play another." Ahmed looked at her. He did not need to speak. His expression allowed it. Maria played again. This time the melody shifted, brighter, faster, more lively. Children leaned forward to watch her fingers move. Adults smiled and nodded to the rhythm. Some even recorded small clips on their phones. A guest turned to Ahmed. "Where did you find such talent?" Ahmed felt a strange silence within him. He did not know how to answer. He simply said, "She works here." The guest looked shocked. "She should not be serving tea," he muttered. Another guest agreed. Maria finished her second piece, and again applause filled the room. Not polite applause, genuine admiration. For the first time since arriving, Maria lifted her eyes slightly, not to show pride, but to acknowledge that people listened. Ahmed stepped closer to her. "Where did you learn this?" he asked quietly. Maria did not answer in detail. She simply said, "Long ago." The sound system turned silent, because the speakers were no longer needed. Her playing was enough. Then the hired pianist finally arrived. He apologized repeatedly, explaining the car trouble. But strangely, his entrance did not create excitement. People did not rush toward him the way Ahmed expected. Instead, someone said, "Let her continue first. We will listen to him later." The hired musician stepped aside politely, listening to the whispers. Maria looked down again. "I can stop now, sir," she said. But Ahmed shook his head slowly. "Play one more." His voice was not sharp now. It was soft. Maria played again, and with each note, she filled something inside her that had stayed empty for a long time. The room did not feel like strangers anymore. It felt like a moment she once knew. People clapped once more, louder than before. When she finally stood, there was no doubt in anyone's eyes. She had talent. Real talent. Ahmed dismissed her gently. "You may return to your duties," he said, but his tone sounded nothing like earlier. Guests continued praising her even after she left the piano. The hired musician played next, but even his skilled performance did not erase what people had already seen. Hours passed, and eventually guests left. The lights dimmed, and the house returned to quiet. Ahmed remained in the living room alone. Standing near the piano, he placed his hand on the instrument, thinking about the evening. How could someone who spent months working silently in his house hold such ability without showing it? Then something surprising crossed his mind. He realized that not everything valuable announces itself. Sometimes it exists quietly. Sometimes it waits, and sometimes it only appears when no other choice remains. Upstairs in her room, Maria sat on her bed silently. She did not smile widely, but her heart was warmed for the first time in years. She felt alive again, not because people applauded, but because music finally touched the air again through her, and what she thought had disappeared returned gently, almost like it never left. The night ended slowly, leaving behind traces of something new. Change had entered the house, quietly, naturally, unexpectedly. The house felt different the morning after the event. Not louder, not busier, just different. Something unseen had shifted in the air. Workers moved quietly, still doing their tasks, but they whispered more than usual. Everyone had witnessed what happened the night before. They had seen Maria sit at the piano like someone remembering her real life, not pretending to be something she was not. Maria woke early as always. She folded her blanket, washed her face, and tied her hair before heading out to work. Through the hallways, the smell of morning tea drifted softly. She began dusting shelves near the staircase, but her movements were slower than usual, not from exhaustion, but from a strange calm spreading inside her. She did not know if she had done something wrong, or something that should not have been done. She only knew that when her fingers touched the piano keys, her heart remembered a world she once belonged to. Ahmed walked down the stairs, looking more thoughtful than usual. His suit was neat, his movement steady, yet there was something softer in his expression. He paused for a moment near the living room, not to check if the floor was shining, not to judge anything, but simply to stand still. Memories of the previous night replayed in his mind. He saw Maria sitting at the piano again. Without fear, without hesitation, he began walking and saw her cleaning the staircase railing. She lowered her head respectfully. "Good morning, sir," she said. He nodded. "Good morning." It was the first time he greeted her gently. He walked past her, but something inside him wouldn't rest. Before reaching the door, he stopped. "Come to the living room when you finish here," he said. Maria froze for a moment. She nodded slowly. After finishing her task, she walked toward the living room. Ahmed stood near the piano, touching one of the keys softly, not pressing it, just brushing the surface. She stood at a distance. "You played well last night," Ahmed said plainly. Maria didn't know what to say. "Thank you, sir," she replied. "Where did you learn to play like that?" he asked. Her voice lowered. "I used to study when I was younger. I went to a small academy, but I stopped." Ahmed waited for more, but she didn't continue. "Why did you stop?" he asked. She hesitated. "My father became sick. I needed to work. Then everything changed." Her answer was short, simple, but enough for someone who understood sacrifice. Ahmed looked at the piano again. "You shouldn't have hidden this talent." Maria did not respond. She knew why she hid it, because that world did not belong to where her life ended up. Ahmed finally said, "I want you to play again today. There is no event, no crowd. Just play." Her eyes widened. "Now?" "Yes," he answered. She sat slowly, unsure if this was right. Her hands rested above the keys carefully. She began to play, not loud, not complicated, just simple notes, something soft like a memory walking slowly. Ahmed stood quietly behind her, listening. Each note reached him differently than last night. Last night was performance. This was truth. When she finished, there was silence, not uncomfortable silence, but peaceful. "Leave the cleaning for today," he said. "Go rest until later." She almost protested. She was not used to being excused from work, but she nodded and stood up. Before she walked away, he spoke again. "Do not hide again." She walked out gently, unsure how to feel. Later that week, word about Maria reached some guests who had attended the gathering. People messaged Ahmed's office assistant, asking if the woman who played would perform again at another event. Ahmed pretended to be uninterested, yet he said, "Maybe, we'll see." He didn't want to make it obvious, not because he did not value her ability, but because he was still learning how to process this discovery. That evening he found Maria cleaning the guest hall. "Come," he said again. She followed him. He brought her into his study. On his desk was sheet music, fresh copies, untouched. "You understand these?" he asked. She nodded slowly. "Good, take them. Practice when you can." Her hands shook slightly as she reached for the pages. No one had given her music sheets in many years, not since the day she packed away her dream and replaced it with duty. She carried them back to her room. That night, instead of sleeping early, she spread the sheets over her blanket, reading the notes quietly like someone revisiting an old journal. Her fingers moved in the air, shaping imaginary chords. She felt alive, yet nervous. The next morning she woke early again, but before starting cleaning, she sat at the piano for just 5 minutes and practiced. Only 5 minutes, as if she was stealing time from the clock. Ahmed walked in unexpectedly. She stood immediately. "No," he said. "Continue." She sat again, embarrassed, and continued. He watched silently. Then he left, without saying anything. A few days later, a small private dinner was arranged, not a grand gathering, only a few respected guests. Ahmed asked Maria to play during the meal. She sat quietly, playing gentle background melodies. People smiled at her politely. One guest even asked Ahmed if she was a trained professional. "Not professionally," Ahmed replied. He didn't mention she worked as a maid. The guest said she should play publicly. "Her control is beautiful." Ahmed didn't respond, but his mind stayed on that thought. As days passed, Maria's schedule changed slightly. She still cleaned, still worked, but every afternoon for a short period she was asked to practice. The workers round her whispered things like, "She deserves better. Maybe she will become something big." Maria smiled shyly when she heard them, but remained humble. One evening, Ahmed entered the living room during her practice. "Stop for a moment," he said. She turned. "I want to know something," he continued. She waited. "If your life did not change before, where would you be right now?" Her voice softened. "I think I would be on stage somewhere. Maybe small stages, teaching children, playing in events. Not famous, just doing something with music." Ahmed nodded. "Would you like that chance again?" Her eyes lifted slowly. "Chance?" "Yes," Ahmed replied. "To learn again, to continue what you left." Maria did not answer immediately. She was too surprised to speak. She whispered after a moment, "I do not know if it belongs to me anymore." Ahmed looked at her with something new, not judgment, not authority, but sincerity. "Talent does not belong to a time. It belongs to a person. If you carry it, it is still yours." That sentence stayed inside her long after the evening ended. She thought about it while brushing her hair. She thought about it while folding her uniform. She thought about it while lying on her bed. What if life was not finished? What if things could begin again? The next day Ahmed met with someone who organized cultural events. He asked what would be required for a small open performance, not something large, not something overwhelming, just something where a beginner or unknown talent could stand. Arrangements could be done. The organizer said. He did not tell Maria about it yet, but the world was already preparing to meet the version of her she once believed she lost, and soon, that moment would arrive, not as a surprise, but as something earned gently, step by step, quietly returning to its rightful place. The sun rose slowly over the city, and the light touched the tall windows of Ahmed's house. It was the day everyone had waited for. The talent event had been announced across different places, and many were planning to attend. Posters were placed in public halls, and the announcement had traveled from homes to shops. People talked about it because Ahmed had confirmed that the event was real and not private. There was excitement, not only in the city but inside Ahmed's own house. The staff moved faster than usual. Chairs were polished, carpets were cleaned again even though they already looked new, and every corner was inspected. Ahmed wanted the house to look perfect. Maria stayed calm, though her heart beat faster. She woke early, cleaned her room, and tied her scarf neatly. She sat for a moment and closed her eyes. She thought of home, her mother, the small gatherings where she played when she was young. She wished her family could see her now, but she also hoped that this moment would give her a chance to change her life, even a little. More workers came into the house to help with arrangements. They set up chairs in the main hall because that was where the performance would take place. Ahmed chose that room because the piano sat there like a centerpiece, waiting for something meaningful to happen. When everything was nearly done, Ahmed walked in wearing a tailored suit. It was simple but elegant, showing that today was not about flashing wealth, but honoring something meaningful. He inspected every detail. The lights were arranged correctly. The cameras were placed near the corners. Professionals had been hired to record the event. His business partners were already discussing how this recording could be used for promoting upcoming cultural programs. But Ahmed was quieter than usual. Something inside him had shifted since that evening when he first heard Maria play. He no longer cared about perfection in the same cold way. Instead, he cared about allowing something beautiful to unfold naturally. The doors opened, and people entered. There were musicians, workers from other homes, neighbors, and even students who came to learn and observe. Ahmed's name carried respect, so people attended without hesitation. Maria stood behind a curtain. One of the workers encouraged her softly, telling her that she would do great. She nodded and smiled nervously. When everyone sat, Ahmed stood and welcomed them with a calm voice. He said the event was dedicated to hidden talent that sometimes lives quietly, unnoticed. Some people were surprised at his words. They were used to hearing him speak of figures, profits, and results, not humanity. Then he introduced Maria. There was a gentle wave of surprise across the hall. Some people whispered because they knew Maria only as a maid from his house. Maria walked toward the piano. Her steps were slow but steady. She sat on the bench and took a breath. The silence in the room was deep. She placed her fingers on the keys. Then she began. The music flowed, smooth and emotional. The tone moved like a soft breeze passing through memories. People listened with full attention. Some closed their eyes. Some kept watching her hands as they moved gracefully. She played not to impress, but to remember. Her music held stories of travel, leaving home, working with dignity, and missing warm voices that once surrounded her. There was a moment when the hall felt completely still. The notes rose gently and then softened like falling leaves. She finished the first piece and paused. People clapped, louder than she expected. Ahmed was standing, almost without realizing he had risen. He looked proud, not proud of owning the piano, but proud of witnessing something meaningful. She went on to play two more pieces. One sounded like laughter mixed with sadness. Another sounded like hope stretching across time. A child in the audience whispered to his mother that he wanted to learn piano. Some young workers wiped tears quietly, not wanting others to see. When Maria finished, the room exploded with applause. She looked overwhelmed. Her hands shook slightly. Ahmed stepped forward and invited her to stand beside him. He announced that Maria would no longer remain only as a worker in the house. He said her talent deserved recognition beyond walls. He explained that she would receive full support to perform publicly if she wished. He promised to help her study music professionally if she wanted that as part of her future. Maria looked at him and bowed her head politely. She could barely speak. She simply said thank you, and her voice trembled. The room again filled with applause. Later that day, small groups gathered to take photographs with her. People asked her simple questions: how she learned, how long she practiced, why she stopped playing. She answered softly, saying she learned from her mother and used to play at night when everyone slept. By evening, Ahmed sat alone in the living room, looking at the piano. Maria walked in, carrying a small stack of papers, performance invitations that guests had left for her. Ahmed told her that she did not have to accept anything quickly. He told her to think about it carefully. She said she wanted time, but she also wanted to share music again. She said music had always been part of her life, and now it felt alive again. Ahmed nodded. Life in the house changed after that night. Maria still worked, but not like before. She was treated like someone with value beyond daily tasks. The staff admired her because she remained humble. She helped when needed, even though she no longer had to. Ahmed changed as well. He became more patient. He spoke to his workers respectfully. He realized that dignity did not come only from being a businessman, but from recognizing value in others, whether they were wealthy or not. Months passed. Posters eventually featured Maria as a performer in cultural halls. She began playing at events, not big ones at first, but meaningful ones. Families brought children to hear her play. Teachers from small schools asked her to speak to young students about following hidden skills. She never forgot how her life changed because one person stopped and listened. Ahmed attended her performances when he could. He never sat in front. He sat inside the middle rows, quietly listening. One evening, after many months, Maria played at a community concert. When she finished, she walked to the back entrance, and Ahmed waited there quietly. She thanked him again, not for helping her change her life, but for recognizing what was inside her. He said his life changed too, because he learned something he had ignored for so long. They parted with mutual respect. Maria continued growing, not just through music but through the confidence she found. And Ahmed walked away knowing that wealth means nothing when it cannot lift lives around you. Their worlds never separated completely. They remained connected through kindness, through respect, and through the night when a piano revealed a truth everyone needed to hear. And that truth was simple. Sometimes greatness exists quietly, waiting for someone to notice.